Welcome everyone to our talk introducing our new Why Not Southwark campaign. In this presentation, we will explain to you a little bit about who we are at Extinction Rebellion, as well as looking at what other councils are doing across the UK to tackle the climate crisis, and what action Southwark Council should be taking to do the same in its own borough. Let's start with the climate emergency itself. It seems unnecessary to have to say this type of thing, but often people underestimate the seriousness of the situation. Of course, we all know about the climate emergency, and of course, we all know that we need to do more. That's why we're here. When we see charts like this that show rising numbers and temperatures caused by greenhouse gas emissions and other human activities, we all know what this shows. But where there seems to be a disconnect is understanding what these numbers truly mean and their impact. And not just the impact in the future, but what's happening right now. So what this chart actually shows us is that we're already playing catch-up. In fact, we're decades behind. The climate crisis is not something bad that might happen in the future, it's something bad that is happening right now. Think disastrous hurricanes like Hurricane Maria or Hurricane Harvey. Think about the deep freeze that happened in Texas this winter. And that is why being carbon neutral by 2030 isn't a goal. It's not an ambition. It's not amazing, wow. We don't get to pat ourselves on the back. It's a deadline. It's us mitigating a disaster. It's us managing to survive. So we ask you to think about what's this world going to look like at 4 degrees? What's going to be left for our future generations? At 1.1 degrees Celsius, we are already seeing some of these devastating effects right here in Southwark. The increased frequency of storms and rapidly rising sea levels means that 60% of Southwark's residents and businesses are at risk of severe flooding. On top of this, 6.1% of deaths in Southwark are attributed to human-made air pollution. In fact, as of December 2020, Southwark now holds the distinction of being the home to the first person, the first child to have air pollution listed as a cause of death. And due to failed crops and biodiversity loss, the climate crisis will threaten the supply of food across the world, which means as many as 75,000 people in the borough are at risk of climate crisis-related food poverty. If this is Southwark at 1.1 degrees Celsius, what is it going to look like at 4 degrees Celsius? We're all here because we know we can't let that happen. It's not a maybe. There's no prize for best effort. We need to understand that it's about doing what's necessary. It's about pushing the boundaries of what we are supposed to do, or what is easy to do, or what other people have done before. It's not going to be easy, and we all know that. And we all need to push for this change together. So what Extinction Rebellion has put together is a list of 3 demands that apply to Southwark as much as they do on a national level. The first demand is to tell the truth. We need the government and the media to tell the full truth about the situation we are in. That means the full picture, our role in it, and what we need to change. People are not going to make sacrifices if they are not told what is going on. The second demand is that we need to act now. We need the government to act now, and we need Southwark to act now. The government needs to set a legally binding target for greenhouse gas emissions to reach net zero by 2025. This does not mean carbon offsetting, but true net zero. Everything lies in how fast we act. The sooner we can do this, the less are the consequences. Thirdly, we demand a citizens' assembly that is beyond politics and beyond parties. The climate emergency is bigger than politics. We don't need a discussion about who has the best strategy or whose voice is the loudest. We need input from people on how to address and combat these issues, and it needs to be legally binding. In light of all this, last month we at Extinction Rebellion Southwark launched the campaign that is the centre of this presentation. Why Not Southwark? This campaign aims to highlight how Southwark Council could be a pioneer of environmentally friendly urban life. We want to be proud of living in Southwark, and we want Southwark to be a leader on this issue. So what can Southwark do that can set an example for other councils? We want to highlight the threats and opportunities arising from the climate crisis in Southwark and offer suggestions of policies that are being done by other local authorities that can be used here in Southwark. To demonstrate what steps Southwark Council can take, we are going to present to you some different ideas. We've split today's presentation into two categories. The first will be looking at structural changes that Southwark Council can make to hit its net zero target, and the second is looking at what we call quick wins, or quick changes that can be made and pushed for right now. Please remember that by pushing for these changes, we are not going to solve climate change in Southwark, but they will bring some serious positive impacts to residents living in the borough and show Southwark as a leader when it comes to this issue. Firstly, we will take a look at the 3 structural changes that Southwark Council can make to tackle the climate crisis. First, we ask for a constitutional amendment to put climate at the heart of council decisions. Second, we request a legally binding citizens' assembly to oversee changes in climate policy. Finally, we want Southwark to create a Green New Deal that will ensure a just transition. CAMDEN Council was the first local authority in London to enact constitutional changes in response to the climate emergency. And this ensured that all council decisions seek to mitigate and adapt to climate change. Now, we've just heard from Jonathan Situ that this could be potentially coming in May 2021 for Southwark, but we want to ask why the delay? Why isn't Southwark bringing in a constitutional change right now? CAMDEN Council has also established a new citizens panel, which will meet 4 times a year to oversee the delivery of its new climate action plan. Now you might be asking, what is a citizens' assembly? A citizens' assembly is a representative group of citizens selected at random from the population. This group of citizens will learn about, deliberate upon, and make recommendations in relation to a particular issue, such as the climate crisis. Although Southwark has talked about bringing in citizens' juries, we have very little information about what these are going to be like. We have a few demands of what we think citizens' assemblies should look like to be effective. Citizens' assemblies should be a deliberative process with time to discuss and reflect on the issues. It should be informed by subject experts. It should be transparent and accountable to the wider public. It should include active measures to engage with underrepresented groups. It should be held quarterly or at least on a regular basis and not just a one-off session. And finally, it should have mandate over all council activities. Finally, we want Southwark to push for a Green New Deal. No other organisation in the borough occupies such a pivotal role and position as the council in terms of influence. This would involve investing both time and resources into building the green economic sector and ensuring a just transition. Although we can't describe exactly what a Green New Deal would look like, many other councils across the UK have already made an attempt at this, such as Liverpool Council and Oldham. There are also some actions that we want Southwark Council to push for right now, actions that we are calling quick wins. These are things that Southwark Council should have really already done, and doing them will see immediate beneficial effects for residents in Southwark. Firstly, Southwark Council already has carbon offsetting payments in place, but in reality these are a scam that can derail the effort to cut carbon emissions. If these offsetting payments allow for new developments to increase their pollution in the borough, then we end up no further along in contributing to a real cut in emissions. The money from these offsetting payments has been collected since 2011, but there are still a lot of unanswered questions. How much have we collected? Where is this money being spent? Could it be used for investment in other green initiatives? We need greater transparency around this whole process to be able to answer these questions. In January 2021, the Council announced that its buildings are now going to be powered by 100% renewable energy. Great, that's fantastic. However, this was 3 months after the new contract was put into place. So why didn't they choose to invest in 100% renewable energy at the start of the contract? Why the delay? In addition to this, 60% of council electricity use is in schools and communal housing. whose switch has been delayed for at least a year. Why don't we accelerate this process instead of just waiting? For a comparison, Warrington Borough Council has launched a green investment scheme and also purchased its own solar farm that powers council buildings and homes, saving their residents money. Why isn't Southwark doing this? Finally, we want to emphasise how Southwark Council should divest its pension funds from fossil fuels. Many local authorities have committed to doing this, but Southwark has been slow in the process. As an example, I want to compare to Islington Council. Islington Council committed to divesting their pension fund in September 2018, and now, in 2021, they only have 1.4% of their divestment fund still invested in fossil fuels. Southwark, on the other hand, committed to divestment a year and a half earlier in December 2016, and yet today they still have 2.5% invested in fossil fuels. In fact, Southwark have actually increased their direct investment in fossil fuel companies and now have £3.65 million directly invested in Shell. Southwark's early leadership on this issue is slipping away rapidly. Today, we have shown to you what Southwark Council can be doing in both the near and the long term to keep to its targets of tackling the climate crisis. Although these actions we have shown to you today are ones that we want the Council to be taking, there are also some other things you can do to be pushing councillors in this direction. Firstly, we want you to contact your local councillors. Encourage them to push for Southwark to be taking these actions. There is already a draft letter written and available on our website for you to take a look. If you don't know who your local councillors are, that's okay. You can find this out on the website as well. Second, if you have some spare time, why not join the campaign? We're always looking for interested members to join and commit any time they are willing to spend. If you want to find out more information about joining, look on the website as well to find out when the next new members induction will be. And finally, we know that with everything that's been going on, sometimes there just isn't enough time in the world to get involved with everything, and that's fine. But if you're willing to spare a few pounds to help out this campaign, we would greatly appreciate it. We'll share the link to donate below, and you can also find it on our website. All these things we talked about today are already being done by other councils across the UK. So we're asking Southwark Council, what are you doing to make sure these things are happening in Southwark? What will your commitments be when we start asking the question, why not Southwark?